Fredo
Hey,
house. Where we at?
well, according to the company and the cigars and the context of it all, I say we're on top.
This makes sense. Well, we're gonna do a little bit of recording and play some
days,
chess.
great days and growth days, baby.
Good day, great day, and growth days. What kind of day are we having right now, though?
Wow, great day. This is our second cigar. We already ate some steaks.
Yeah, and it's
I won a game of chess.
cut. He won one.
He's a good friend. He let me.
He had the steak, he had the tomahawk. He slapped it down on the chessboard.
Now we got to do our best to make ourselves look good when we're playing because it's been recorded.
Yes. If we don't want to turn this into a growth day.
Yeah, well, if you see us not doing so hot while we're playing, we're doing that on purpose so you don't take our moves.
Yeah. Who gave you that phrase? Good days, great days, and growth days. I like that.
I came up with that.
You should copyright that or trademark it or something.
It's too late. It's already been borrowed.
Who borrowed it from you?
Marissa.
Well, that's what you get for not giving her credit all the time.
No, Marissa jokes with me because I'll say things. You know, we talk. We've been together 6 years now, so we have a lot of conversations, and I've had a lot of back end conversations with her before I got in front of the camera. And she'd joke with me all the time. She's like, "If you don't use that, I'm stealing it." And well, I didn't have any plans to get back into business until last July, and she 100%. She told me, she's like, "I like that." She's like, "Hey, if you're not going to use it, I'm stealing it." I said, "Do you think?" But it's Marissa. So
now we have to say Marissa says there's good day, great days, and growth days.
I heard it publicly from Marissa.
But since you heard that phrase, you hadn't had one bad day since, huh?
Nope. You see, that's the interesting thing. When I decided to stop having bad days and only have growth days, I ain't had a bad day since.
What does a growth day look like?
Like a well-dressed bad day. Like if you threw a suit and tie on a bad day, that's what. No, honestly, man, a growth day is maybe you've been working on a client that you thought was going to be a big win for you. And you've been putting a lot of extra work on, the kind of client that calls you with a million questions, and you have to do all these amendments to the training that you're going to do. In my case, you show up, you do the training, and then you don't get paid for it. Because you didn't deliver the value they were expecting. You don't really get any explanation after that. Some people would consider that a bad day, but for me, 100%, man, that's a growth day. Because the first thing I did when I came back was ask the question, what did I not do that made them feel uncomfortable to pay me?
I like that. Actually, I was reading on the plane about self-awareness and asking those tough questions because you can only control what you did.
A lot of times we want to point fingers, man. And it's not to say that couldn't have been handled better on their end. 100% they could have handled that better, right? It's my fault. And when I say accountability is a core value of mine, I'm accountable to a fault where I always err on the side of accountability. Because I could have easily said, well, they didn't pay me because X, Y, Z. But the truth is, they would have never been in that situation to make the decision not to pay me if I had showed up and over-delivered. So for me, that was a growth day because I grew from that. And since then, I spoke at your spot. And since then, I spoke in Indianapolis at Good Shepherd. And then I spoke at Fence Tech. Now I'm going to go speak at Empire in Nebraska, and then another finance company in Iowa. So that bad day, if I would have treated it like a bad day, would have never led to the improvements that got me in these other rooms.
You think that bad day, the growth that turned into a growth day, do you think that was because you didn't get clear expectations up front or you didn't properly prepare? Because a lot of times, unspoken expectations is premeditated resentment.
I like that.
Unspoken expectations is premeditated resentment.
If I'm being honest, I think it has to do with both. Expectations weren't clear, and I didn't prepare correctly. And you can't really prepare correctly if you never set the expectations.
So I had somebody the other day, he said, tell me exactly what you're going to do for my company when you're coaching. And I said, well, if I could tell you exactly what I do, you wouldn't need me because then you would know what to do. I said, don't you want to be a little bit surprised? He said, what does that mean? He goes, don't put me in a box of black and white expectations. Tell me where we need to go, and I'll be the who, and we'll figure out the how. But if you tell me how to do all the hows, then you already know what to do. And so anyways, I think there's a purpose for setting expectations both ways, but I want people to be surprised when I work with you, because we're going to uncover the unknown, the blind spot. And for us to do that, you've got to dig deeper than, ask the why 5 times. So anyways, so growth days, but if this is going to go live, someone's going to be like, yeah, that sounds good, but what does a growth day looks like? You talked about came back and reflecting. How fast do you do that? What's your bounce back rate? How do you ask for feedback? All that.
You have to be honest with yourself. The first question you have to ask yourself is, it's a football phrase, right? Did you leave it all on the field? And that was the hard question I asked myself. When I came back, I didn't feel like I delivered. And I didn't get the feedback telling me that I did deliver. So on both fronts, on the receiving end for them and delivering side for me, there was clearly a performance gap of what I imagined I would perform and what I actually performed. And it was my first one back after years of not being in business. I was rusty, it's like if you used to play basketball, you used to play pickup games 3 or 4 times a day, and then you don't play for a couple of years and you come back and you try to run with the guys who've been playing every day. Your knees are going to start to buckle, you're going to cramp up, you're going to be missing shots. And it's not because you're not a good player, you're just out of practice. And for me, that's what it was. I was out of practice. So what a growth day looked like for me was to come back, revise my training, evaluate my performance and what I could have done better, what I think I could have done better. And then I reached out and I asked, like, hey, I told them, you might have missed the invoice. So one of the things that I practice is I like
you might have missed it.
I always like to say, to leave a little room to save face. If the infraction isn't, I consider infractions either misdemeanors or felonies, right?
Yeah.
Is it a felony or misdemeanor? So it's a misdemeanor, especially like you get a lot of emails, your team gets a lot of emails. It's easy to see past something. So I text because they know us. They've been to the house before. So we consider them friends. And I still do. I don't let something like that get in the way of growth, because a lot of times people just don't know how to give you the hard answer because they don't have good experience with that. So for me, a growth day is a bad day you don't learn from, is really how I would put that. So you have bad days if you don't grow from it. If you go through a challenging moment, whether it be with your family, with your spouse, with your business partners, with yourself, if you don't take that and learn from it, then it's not a growth day, right? So growth day sounds good in theory, but yeah, growth day is really just a bad day that you turned around and you got a lesson out of, because you don't really lose if you learn.
Yeah, that's good.
And for me, that's what that growth day was. It was come back, evaluate the situation, make the improvement, and then get back in there. So for me, it was the disc training, which is the one that I came back and I did first. It was a disc training. I did one other disc training since then, and it was just for 2 people. It was very intimate. It was a very small team. Got great feedback, and immediately afterward, they asked if they could refer me to a bigger team, if I would do that for a bigger team. And I said, absolutely. I'll do this for as big as a team as you want, right? But that wouldn't have happened if I came back and I just pointed fingers and I started making excuses. Oh, well, it's my first time back and the training is as good as it could have been. No, it wasn't, honestly. I came back. I made some amendments. I made the training shorter. I kept only what needed to be there. And I'm about to go do this training again next month. And before I go next month, I'm going to revise it again because I don't want the same thing to happen. So that's what growth days look like. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Yeah, so there's reflection that turns into a lesson. So reflection to lesson. And then there's a learning from the lesson that you then turn back into more earning. See what I did there? A lesson, a reflection, lesson, learning, earning. Because a lot of people stop at the learning. I learned from this, but then they don't go back in and do it again. So you put it back into action.
Man, all success is success is the ink that you write on the pages of failure. Like you can't write success unless you fail, right? So failure creates the book. Like you don't have, it's the playing field. And I think a lot of the times, I know at least for me, it was, I didn't want to fail. I hate failing. But now I've gotten a flavor for it. That, I know it sounds weird, man, but for me, it's the more I fail, the more I learn, which means the more I earn, right? Don't sticking to what you're saying.
Hey, wait, are you going to claim that before I claim that?
Hey, listen, man, there's nothing new under the sun. It's just, one person wears purple cowboy boots when he says it. The other one, has minion tattoos. Yeah. Like, who do you want to hear it from?
Yeah, I like that.
I like the question, though, because you not only are you a high achiever, but you coach high achievers. So you've probably had plenty of growth days. So my question to you would be the same. What does a growth day look like from your perspective? What would you consider a growth day for you and for clients that you've worked with?
Yeah, so I'm in sales. So I know that for every 2 no's, I have a yes to follow. So it's kind of like failure, first attempts in learning, right? Is that the more times I fail, the closer I am to success on whatever that looks like. And so I'm a get back in there kind of guy. I've been trying to close that gap on my recovery, or because there's going to be a reaction to failure, but how quickly do I recover? And so I'm at this stage now where I'm 41 years old, and things are extremely unobvious to me at this point because I'm pretty situationally aware. So I have to ask friends. I have to have the Matt Warners that say that sucked, and say why. And he said, "I'm glad you asked." I'm glad you asked, and receive feedback. We were talking about actually on the car ride over here, is that if you're an envious or jealous person, which is a natural habit to, then you're going to put yourself in smaller rooms, and those people aren't going to recognize the mechanics and the small stuff. And so my goal right now is, how do I bounce back and how do I have growth days? Is I put myself in growing rooms that are growing. So that way, one, it's modeled for me, but two, people like being around others that are working through lessons that turn into blessings. And I can tell you this much, and to all comes it, the easiest way to have a growth day is to have a positive attitude. Because if you have a negative attitude, you're going to have a negative output. And so that's why I started jump roping. Or, it's interesting. I stopped drinking energy drinks. And when I get tired, I just take a nap now. And so I realized that a lot of my bad days was because I would drink an energy drink and muster through something that I didn't have the energy to do anyway. So it was mediocre. I knew I could have done better. And so now I just take a nap. You heard it first. Robert takes naps.
It does happen.
Yeah. And so... yeah, so I definitely spend some time in reflection. I'm a numbers guy. I'm not a dork by any capacity, but I love seeing the behaviors in the numbers. So I like looking at P&Ls. I like KPIs, leading, not lagging. I never look at lagging indicators, and the KPIs help me move what I'm measuring, right? And so it's pretty easy to reflect. I mean, you can see patterns in numbers very easily, and so. Most of the decisions I make nowadays is based off of a number, and I can pull the behavior out. So,
you mentioned getting into rooms and being in the right rooms, but I think the real term here will be campsite, right?
Oh yeah, we got to change. Yeah, campsite. Campsite.
You have to make sure you're at the right campsite, right?
Yeah.
Because we can get into a different room or a different campsite in this case, but if you're in the wrong campsite. You got to go to the campsites that lead you to the mountain you want to summit, right?
Yeah.
Since we're climbing a mountain, it makes sense. We're hiking a mountain. I'm not sure.
I never got a clear answer. I think we're climbing it. It's going to be like.
I think it's called climbing. It sounds cooler.
Yeah. Have you seen Cliffhanger? It's going to be a close second.
Yeah. Just obviously we're more built than Stallone.
Yeah.
It was Stallone, right?
Yeah, Sylvester Stallone. Heck yeah.
So that's how I like your campsite thing, because a room is one thing, right? Because I talk about, you have to get in the right rooms, but the campsite is like, there's more preparation, I think, and camaraderie in a campsite. Like, you want to make sure you're going to spend the night with these people around a fire and smoking cigars. You want to make sure you have the right company with you, right? And I think that's another thing that helps growth is who's with you at these campsites helping you prepare. Do you have that Mount Warner who's going to say it sucks and then also tell you why it sucked, as opposed to, sometimes we got people in our groups that just tell us it sucks. And then when you ask them why, they're like, I don't know, man, you got to figure that out. Well, why would you tell me it sucked then? You ain't got nothing for me.
Yeah, and I love when people give perspective through a experience share. That's the easiest way to give somebody, not advice, but give somebody a new perspective is through an experience share. So make it less about what you didn't do and more about what I did, and maybe you can glean off of it. Have you heard of the 20-mile march? When you were talking, I was thinking about it. 20-mile march. There's two explorers going to discover the South Pole, and they left at the exact same time. One explorer heavily prepared for it, learned everything he needed to, and the other one got all the heavy equipment, had all the supplies times 4, so they were over prepared in a sense. They basically, we've packed like that, right? Like if we're gone for 4 days, we can take the time and figure out what outfits, or we're just going to check a bag and take too much, right? And so these two explorers leave at the same exact time. This is a true story. You look it up. And one of the explorers said, we're going to march as far as we can on the good days. And then on the bad days, we're going to hunker down. And the other explorer said, we're going to march on the good days and the bad days, 20 miles every day. Some days are going to be harder than others, but we're going to do 20 miles every day. And that's how we properly prepared. Well, one group, the 20-mile marchers, made it and made it back. They were first to discover the South Pole. They made it back safely. The other group marched a really long time, got fatigued, and they caught a bad day. And they caught a second bad day, and a third and fourth. Before you know it, they'd gone through all their rations, and they didn't get very far the first couple days because they were carrying too much stuff to begin with. And they ended up losing tons of time on waiting for that good day. And they ended up getting to the South Pole, see that the other explorers had made it. They turned around and they died, literally all of them, 20 miles away from the finish line. And it was all because they were waiting for only the great days, instead of consistently compounding their march. And so it's a really profound story to talk about. That who plans their 20-mile march will get to the finish line safely and almost always ahead of schedule. So anyways, that's a really cool story.
I like that, man. I mean, it ties into what we're talking about, the growth days, right? You have good days. You have great days, right? When the weather's great, you have the right amount of rations for everybody. Nobody got hurt. Weather was great. You didn't get no blisters. The good days, you were a little hungry. Maybe you got a little bit of blisters. It wasn't as nice. It was hot, maybe. And then the growth days is when you really challenge. I just gave a lesson yesterday on my mastermind I did the values audit, which I did with Chad and his group over at Good Shepherd. And I did a values audit. And I talk about how values are really shown, like what you value is really shown under pressure.
Oh, yeah.
Because you could say you value hard work until it's 110 degrees outside. And it's just you and your buddy, and you're doing, I don't know how you measure fences, right, in feet or whatever, but let's say you're doing a really big project, and you had one guy call out, it's 110 degrees outside, it's just you and your buddy, and you got to get after it. That's when you really know who values hard work, because it's easy to value hard work when everything's going great.
That's a good point. Yeah, start looking for growth days, because, I mean, you're right. You can't really determine someone's character in comfort. You typically find what character there is or values is under pressure, adversity. And so not that we should always wish adversity on us, but quickly get to be stretched and see who's worth it. And so, yeah, we faced adversity in 2024. We had a great year in 2023. And I said, y'all, I'm fearful we're going to have some victory disease. So how high you how you act on the peak will determine how low your valleys are, and how you act in the valleys will determine how high your next peak is. And so I said, y'all, we're moving. We had a great year. There was an anomaly year, so shouldn't have repeated itself. We're going to be under some adversity. We're going to be uncomfortable. And we flipped almost the majority of our team because it was the first time that we actually seen real pressure. And I think pressure is a privilege. But that's one of my values, right? I want to perform even better under pressure. That's what Stephen Covey told me. He said, Robert, I want to think of you as the leader who's especially great under pressure. Not even great, but especially great. And so anyways, that's Boy, we could talk about that for a minute. Growth days, huh?
There's a lot, man. I think, I had a growth season. Screw a day. I had a growth season, man. It's
Well, that's interesting. So how old are you?
36.
36. Have you noticed that at 25, you almost your growth days are just days or hours, and then as you get older, they become weeks or seasons? I feel like they get longer the more complicated or sophisticated our roles are in the world. Have you ever noticed that?
I have from experience. I mean, I was in prison. I was in prison for 5.5 years.
But they don't know it, and they don't know it.
It's a surprise. I was in prison. It wasn't anything weird. I robbed a gambling room very unsuccessfully. Don't worry. It wasn't anything weird. It wasn't like Ocean's 11 either. It was way less cool than that. But
hey, the next episode we'll do that. So you have to watch this one, and then the next episode we'll talk about that and the lessons you learned and the blessings you got. So,
but that ties into what you were saying though about the seasons, because most people, you tell them you were in prison, or even yourself, you think prison's probably going to be the worst thing that ever happened. When I got out, though, it's when I went into the season of growth, man. And I'd love to say I went to prison and I got out and immediately things just turned around and started looking up. That's where the real test happened, though, afterward, because you're challenged, you're broke, opportunities are scarce, you have this X on your back, and the old crowd is there the whole way, like, hey, man, I got some dope. If you want to get back in the game, you can get back on your feet. I've made connections while I was in prison. Would have been easy. And I won't tell you I wasn't ever tempted, man. When you're in your lows and you're broke and you got your homeboy who's doing really well, selling some dope, and you're like, dude, I could make 20 grand by next month. What am I doing? But that's when you get challenged, and that's where you got to ask yourself, like, we say a bad day out here is better than the great day in prison. Right?
Yeah.
And we talk about that a lot. But it's not until you're put in that position to where, I started and failed at like 4 different businesses, man. And then the coaching business, I started in 2018, failed, got a little wind, failed again. COVID hit. My mom passed away. I was broke. I was challenged. That was the growth season. And it's just now, right before I met you, man, last July is really when it turned around for me. And now I'm barely starting to catch some wind. Months after I made the decision to just only have growth days, good days, and great days, right?
Yeah, you said one thing. I want to land on that, and then we'll wrap this one up. A lot of times you're stuck between 2 decisions, the temptation and the test. The temptation and the test. And I think the test turns into your testimony, but the temptation turns into all sorts of disasters and everything else. And so you took the test, and it's a lot harder, but we know that muscle is gained in under resistance, right? So I love it. So I think we'll wrap this up because this is just Campfire Talks. We're going to play a quick game, and then we're going to need to tell your story of prison, because people are going to want to know who this Alfredo, like the sauce, is. Like the sauce is, because the whole world doesn't know you yet, and we'll have to tell the story of how we met as well, because I know a lot of people think that social media is bad, but it's only bad if you use it for bad. But how we connected was you started posting this great content. I started following, and I became curious, and then here we are now. So, anyways. So
Campfire conversation.
Campfire conversation. Yeah, we don't know how to end it yet, so it's over.
Bye. We'll work on. It's a growth moment.